Hey guys, so this is the second time that I made a video like this. I'll be talking about games that I played on PC this time, though most of these games are on other platforms too. I'll start off with a few spooky stuff that I played back in October, as well as some multiplayer ones that I played with friends. First one's The Evil Within. I wanted to play this for so long because it's directed by Shinji Mikami, the same guy who worked on the older Resident Evil games, including Resident Evil 4. And The Evil Within feels a lot like Resident Evil 4, but it's definitely more serious. So in The Evil Within, a detective named Sebastian investigates a mass murder with his partners, but things take a strange turn and he ends up dealing with zombie-like enemies and grotesque creatures. It's more of a psychological horror type of story, so there's a lot of confusing moments. And that's one of the things that I didn't like about the story. I felt the whole presentation was messy too, so I just mentally wandered off every time there was some story exposition in the game. As for the gameplay, it's a third-person survival horror game, so you'll be gutting through monsters while making sure that you have enough ammo. I think that's where the game shines the most, its action-packed moments, so the stealth sections felt really boring to me. There are parts of the game that become very difficult too. I spent a lot of time dying not only from enemies but from traps and quick time events. I'm okay with having instant deaths in games as long as it's there to provide a challenge, but some of them were really unfair in The Evil Within. The game will throw stronger enemies at you when you least expect it, so getting swarmed is not very fun. The boss battles though. Some had frustrating instant kills, but I loved how a lot of the fights came out of nowhere. The game rarely indicates when you're about to fight a boss, so it was super thrilling when a freaky monster did appear. Overall, there were lots of scary moments among the creative, gory imagery throughout my playthrough. The only thing that ruined some aspects of the game for me were my expectations, I guess. I thought it would be a fast, well-paced game like Resident Evil 4, so that's probably why I got bored during the slower sections of The Evil Within. Still, I think it's a decent game to try out if you want a challenging survival horror game. I heard that the sequel is better too, so I'll definitely play that in the near future. Now the next game is Left 4 Dead 2. This is probably one of my favorite co-op games of all time. I love how I can just pick up the game and start shooting through hordes of zombies. It's super addicting. I don't think the game needs much of an introduction since you just pew pew zombies. Can't believe I just said that. So to make it short, it's a 4-player horror FPS game where you kill normal zombies and special infected ones. There's a lot of game modes, but most people just play the campaigns. All you need to do there is to survive through a series of areas in each map until you reach the final section, where all of you fight for your life and hopefully escape. I revisited the game not only to play with friends, but to check the Last Stand update. I didn't think that the game would even receive a new map, let alone additions like new animations and dialogue. It gives me so much hope, but not enough hope for something like Left 4 Dead 3, of course. So going back to the update, the new campaign was a blast to play through and the finale was pretty challenging. I don't know how many times I died in the lighthouse area, and even then I barely made it out alive with the randoms I played with. That's all I have to say really. I was happy to get back to the game, and it was also nice to play the game with a friend who was experiencing it for the first time. It made for some funny moments. Next up is Phasmophobia. I've gone through a few horror-themed multiplayer games before, and while they were fun, none of them truly terrified me in a sense. But for Phasmophobia, oh man, I never thought a ghost hunting game could be this fun and scary. Up to 4 players can go to haunted locations to gather evidence of paranormal activity, with the ultimate goal being to identify the type of ghost that's inhabiting the place. You can use all kinds of equipment to help you, thermometers to check for freezing temperatures, an EMF reader to check for ghost activity in a room, and a spirit box so you can talk to the ghost. Graphically, the game looks simple, yet it manages to have this really thick atmosphere that'll make you paranoid the longer you stay in a map. I think that's scarier than any jump scare in the game. It was hilarious seeing our group getting more and more anxious as the game went on. It was especially fun when we played on Professional, the highest difficulty level. I don't know how many times I was killed off first, just because I taunted the ghost 5 minutes into the game, but I have no regrets. You can matchmake online, but you can also play solo if you want. I did that for one match, and I'll admit that it was a short game. I didn't stick around to see the actual ghost. I tried talking to the ghost in the spirit box for a while, but when it started responding and the lights started flickering, I called it a day. The game's still in early access, so I can't wait for major updates like new maps and ghosts. My group only encountered one hunt where the ghost bugged out, so we just ended the game. But other than that, there was nothing too bad. I love the physics though, not sure if that counts as a bug. On to the final multiplayer game I've played, Project Winter. I didn't play this for too long, but I wanted to talk about the game anyway. I've seen people compare it to Among Us, and that is pretty accurate, at least, when it comes to things like having an imposter in your group and doing tasks. In Project Winter, you'll be working with your friends to survive the wilderness by gathering resources, completing objectives, and eventually escaping in a helicopter. It's a game that can be played by up to 8 people, but there will be 1 or 2 traitors, and their job is to make things harder for the survivors, whether it's sabotaging their goals or luring them out to kill them. And then there's other threats, like trying not to freeze or starve to death. The game has proximity chat too, so you won't be able to hear your companions talking if they're too far away. It was interesting, especially when you're managing your inventory in a building and then you hear someone being murdered outside. My favorite playthrough was when I tried to kill my friend during a blizzard so that nobody could hear him. Sadly, I failed, but I'll get away with it next time. My short time with the game was great. I wish I could have said more, but I was too busy punching trees and crafting, while other members of my group were actually doing the objectives. Now for Genshin Impact. I don't like the whole pay-to-win and microtransaction business that plagues both mobile and free-to-play games, but Genshin Impact is something else. And I mean that in a good way. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about people comparing the game to Breath of the Wild and other titles. Yes, the resemblance is striking, but I don't think the game is ripping off of anything, to my knowledge at least. It's just taking inspiration from a lot of big games that came before it, which is something that practically every other game does. It's crazy how it can run on almost every platform though, from computers, consoles, to smartphones. Just seeing the graphics and learning that I can swim in water was enough to impress me for, again, a game that runs on phones. There's a main story too, with cutscenes and voice acting, but I'm not very interested in it since the plot and the characters so far have very standard anime tropes. So for those of you who haven't played Genshin Impact, you get to choose which of the twin protagonists you want to play as at the start of the game, and then your other sibling gets taken away by a god. Yeah, what happens to them, I don't know. Either I haven't gotten to that part of the game's story yet, or it's going to be released in a future update. Shortly after that, you meet Paimon, a cute but annoying companion, and then you can start exploring while slowly learning about the character's lore and unlocking features in-game. You can collect different playable characters, level them up, change their equipment, do some crafting, cooking, and more. It's amazing. It's amazing to me how Genshin Impact feels almost like a AAA game. And because the open world gameplay and everything felt really familiar, it was super easy to get into. While there are dungeons to explore and quests to complete, I got most of my enjoyment from just exploring the map. You can hunt animals, pick up critters and plants, and open chests. Lots of chests. I swear, it feels incredibly rewarding to just explore the world. Sometimes I launch this game and play for like 10 minutes just to get that dopamine boost. Another big reason why I enjoyed exploring is because of the random enemies scattered in the map. The combat in Genshin Impact is pretty fun because you switch between 4 characters in your party. Both enemies and characters have elements like water, earth, fire, and air, so each attack gives different reactions. All of them can be combined too, which can increase damage or even expand area of effect. Now I'm just talking about the game on a surface level, so I don't know much about the late game stuff, but yeah, Genshin Impact is impressive for a free game. Free if you're not interested in the whole gacha thing. So these things in game called wishes are gacha, which are kinda like loot boxes, so you get a super low chance to acquire that waifu or item that you really want. While it's not pushed on players, it is definitely there and very much advertised. I only spent $5 on this game just to see if I can get something decent. I know, give me a break, okay? I don't have much experience with gacha games. But yeah, unsurprisingly, I didn't get much from wishes. So for everyone interested in this game, don't spend money on it. Especially if you're susceptible to making huge purchases in a game like this, you should stay far, far away. If you've already spent money, and I mean enough money to make you question your life decisions, then my condolences. For the next game, yeah, I finally started Kingdom 2 Crowns, and unlike my video on the previous game, Kingdom New Lands, I know how to play the game now. So you have to build a small kingdom in this game while making sure that your crown doesn't get stolen by these monsters that come out of purple portals. If your crown gets stolen, then that's the end of your reign. But you don't have to start another game. Your progress will be passed over to your heir and then you can continue playing. This gameplay loop makes the game incredibly addicting. I found it really hard to stop playing once I started a reign. But this is just a little sneak peek because I'll be doing a full video on the game. Comparing it to the previous game, I'm having way more fun with 2 Crowns. And I think the reason why I'm having more fun is because I'm doing better in 2 Crowns. It feels easier to earn gold and make progress. I always felt like I was struggling in New Lands. I don't know if it was just bad luck or something else. I even went back to play a little bit of New Lands and I still did a terrible job. Might as well just give my crown away to the purple guys. Another game I played is Finding Paradise, a sequel to a 2011 game called To the Moon. The prequel was one of the first indie games that I ever played, and I think it was popular at the time too. Popular for making everyone cry. Finding Paradise follows the same path, with the story being about 2 doctors who use special tech to travel into a dying man's memories so that they can fulfill his last wish. Once they're inside the man's head, they'll be able to witness his life story from childhood all the way to the present. Since this is very much a story-driven game, most of your enjoyment will depend on the narrative. There's not much gameplay apart from walking around and watching conversations. If you guys played To the Moon, then this will all look very familiar. But not entirely, because there's a few new twists that made the sequel interesting. My only complaint about Finding Paradise is the pacing. The game dragged on a little too long towards the end. It felt like it was going around the bush for a while. Still, it was a good story. If you haven't played To the Moon and you want to play Finding Paradise, you'll be just fine since they're both standalone stories. The final game I've been playing is Shenmue. I've always heard about how iconic the series is to gaming as a whole. I never owned a Dreamcast console, but I did try to emulate this game. I had a terrible laptop at the time, so it didn't work out. Now that the port has been out for a while, I decided to give it a try. So in Shenmue, you play as Ryo Hazuki, a young man who's out for revenge after witnessing his father's murder. It sounds like it'll be a story that's full of action, but it's more of a life sim really. It's a real slow burn. You'll spend most of your time exploring and gathering information from people. There's fighting in the game too, but it serves more as a plot device. Like, Ryo will only get into fights if it's necessary. It's good that there's not many battles because I find the controls a little clunky, at least by today's standards. The game has a day and night cycle along with different weather conditions, and the NPCs have their own routines. Shops have their own schedule too, and practically every person in the game has something to say when you talk to them. I know this doesn't sound impressive, especially when you compare it to modern games, but Shenmue was released in late 1999. It's a real technical marvel. I can only imagine what it was like playing it back then. And again, that's all I have to say for now because I'll be making a full video on this too. Since the port includes both Shenmue 1 and 2, I thought it would be better to talk about both games instead of splitting it up into two videos. I recently started Shenmue 2, so yeah, I hope I can work on both the Kingdom and Shenmue videos before the year ends. And that's it. Let me know what you thought about the video. So after I upload Kingdom and Shenmue, I've been thinking of picking up some other games that I never finished, like Dragon's Dogma and Hollow Knight. I think I've mentioned Hollow Knight before in a previous video. I don't know. But yeah, I really like both games, but I got distracted by other things right when I was playing them. That's been bugging me for a long time now, so I'll take it as a sign that I have to play them all the way to the end. I hope you guys will enjoy that, and yeah, take care. I'll see you in the next video.